Hi, this is Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Canberra Magazine, and this is another edition of WCM's Park Update. And my guest today is probably someone who's familiar to a lot of people, Mike Harrison, the COO of CRR Hospitality. And Mike, you just about travel all over the place. You travel all the time. So,
That's what you got to do. You got to see the world. It's part of the fun.
so yeah, and you guys have been busy in 2025, I guess. What have you guys been focused on at CRR Hospitality so far this year?
Thanks, Ben. Yes, I'm very excited to be here. Appreciate the opportunity. And CRR has been focused on a few things. One is, some of you may know, obviously, we are owners of all of our ground up development properties like Verde Ranch
Yeah.
RV Resort, etc. And so we have another one that's opening actually in maybe 3 weeks, August 1st, which is Buckeye Ranch RV Resort. So finishing off the last of our ground up development, larger resorts. Um, at the same time, we're focusing on third-party management and consulting, which we continue to do. We just picked up COTA RV Park, which is in Circuit of the Americas racing track in Austin, Texas, from a third-party management contract. Rock Springs RV Resort, which is off the I-17, if anybody's familiar with the famous Rock Springs Cafe Pie Shop. My wife told me I have to limit my site visits to that property because every time I go, I come home with more pie. Uh, uh, that'll open
Yeah.
at the end of this year, and a couple other third party opportunities that we're working on as well. And then continuing to do, I guess, industry education and resourcing, and whether it's speaking with American Glamping Association or OHI or the state associations or revenue management, CampSpot, just a lot of different participation to help the industry.
Yeah, and you guys were honored with the Arizona Top Workplace Award. I think that's you've gotten that multiple times, correct?
We have. That's actually the third year in a row. We take that very seriously. Outside of that, we do a independent associate engagement survey that we do every year with our associates, just to gauge the satisfaction and engagement of our workplace at CRR. We also subscribe to this service, which Enrage does this survey outside of us, and they contact the associates directly. So the feedback is directly from associates, which is very exciting and makes us very proud. We're always working; we can always do better, but to win it 3 years in a row just really speaks to the incredible associates that we have in our company and the culture
Yeah.
that's so important to us. And kind of we do business the same way, so it's pretty exciting for us, and we're very happy about that.
Well, I know employee turnover is a huge deal in the industry, and just finding qualified workers to be able to work at the parks. I guess you guys have a pretty extensive program in place. You guys able to keep employees and fill those spots that you need filled when they pop up?
It would be wonderful to say we have 0% turnover, but that's very, very difficult in the hospitality industry and the outdoor hospitality industry. We try and make it as appealing as possible. So, we balance it, with a workforce that's both local, but also, work camper is a misnomer now versus what it was, 10, 15 years ago.
Yep.
Work camper today basically means you living on site and working, but we pay a full wage and benefits, etc. But, we want to make our properties the most attractive opportunity for the best work campers so that we have first right of refusal, so to speak. So when people are looking to plan their next associates are looking to plan their next stay or where they want to work camp, that we come up, whether it's because our property is beautiful or the culture is great. We want to make an attractive place for them to work so that they want to stay with us, so that we have great people. And that's how we get the results we do, as it seems obvious, obviously, but our associates deliver the experience for our customers.
Yeah, and then I think I just got a press release today that mentioned you guys are partnering with the National African American RVers Association, so that's exciting too, just on the inclusion and diversity front. So
Absolutely, I didn't even realize that went out. So that's great. Yeah, Aaron and the marketing team do a great job. And we hosted a convention for them, a rally at Savannah Lakes RV Resort there down in Hardyville, South Carolina. And boy, they could dance. They had a great, grand old time. and it's just fantastic. Our 3 of our DNA words are natural, casual, and southern hospitality, and so they just fit right into that vibe. They were just having an amazing time, and just like there's that group Black Folks Camp too. It's
Yep.
important for us to make outdoor hospitality available to all creeds, cultures, heights, aliens, dogs, cats, armadillos. We want everybody to be able to experience outdoor hospitality, and so it's partnering with them is very exciting for us.
Well, if you're out in New Mexico and an alien lands at your campground, that's a pretty big tourist attraction, I have a feeling.
I know, right? My son, I think I told you my son started his first big boy job in Carlsbad, and so we're going to visit him in a couple months. So there's nothing else out in Carlsbad except rocks and dirt. So I'll have to look out for the aliens when I'm there.
Well, Mike, one of the reasons you wanted to come on the show, I wanted to have you on the show, was to talk a little bit about revenue management. I know you've talked, I've been to a couple conferences where you've spoken about revenue management. I guess, looking at the industry right now, we're a couple years removed from probably the COVID highs where rates seem to just keep going up and up and up. And rate management was definitely being talked a lot about for park owners. I guess, do you still, what's the rates look like this year? Have you noticed any difference on what you guys are doing at CRR this year?
Yeah, and it's exciting. For those that know me, know I nerd out, on revenue management. I love to, I got my little bling necklace, you know, it's something that I'm very passionate about, and it starts back maybe 5 years ago. I remember having a discussion with the general manager of Verde Ranch, and this was the October of COVID, and we were going into 21, and we were looking at on the books for March, which is peak season, and we were already at 80%. And I'm like, raise our rates, and she's like, we can't, and I'm like, says who? Well, you publish your rates and you print them once a year, and I'm like, I came from the hotel where I'm like, oh my gosh, print them and you publish rates 1 year. I'm like, yeah, but we're like 80%. Raise them. Like, you can't. I'm like, why not? Says who? And so, we were, I believe, were some of the first that were doing kind of the seasonal pricing model, of
Yeah.
just understanding based on demand and your forecast, what should you do to drive enhanced rates? And that was the first discussion I really had with CampSpot back at the time because there was no, forecasting report, and I had come from the hotel world. And so our vision statement at CRR is evolve the industry to the modern world, because it's a great industry, but we thought it was a bit antiquated, 20 years ago compared to the hotel business and just what their opportunity was. So, we had spoken with CampSpot several times, and back then and still even today, revenue management consists of dynamic pricing, grid optimization, site lock fees, etc. And while that's some version of revenue management, it's only begins to scratch the surface. And so we've
Yeah.
been passionately driving and working on evolving the revenue management effort. Partnering with CampSpot. CampSpot will be the first PMS in the industry to have a revenue management system integrated into their PMS. Should be done by the end of this year. So instead of having one of those third-party plugins that sort of do it and only do it for glamping, this will make recommendations and changes and use AI to really help predict forecast and demand, and it'll be an amazing tool for the general managers, especially for those that aren't savvy or don't have a lot of experience or maybe don't have a lot of corporate oversight. So that's kind of how the revenue management journey started, and where we
Well,
are, is in that place. And so we've been working on revenue management 101, if you will. Revenue management 202 should be coming out later in the year. To kind of introduce some of these concepts, which is scary. It's a lot of numbers. It's a lot of analytics. It's a lot of analysis. And so,
mhm.
you know, I think in general, people's philosophy is just raise rates. Raise it by 5% each year. And while that's true, you obviously can't do that in a vacuum. So, I think this year has been an interesting year because while we have absolutely raised rates, there are times it's also more competitive. As I'm sure I've seen a lot of your reports. There's some softening in certain areas, certain
Yeah.
markets, and a lot of the overbuilding that happened because of COVID boom. all those parks have now opened up in the last year or so, 2 years, and so now there's more supply. And so in some markets, especially in off season, you got to be competitive. So while you're raising rates, at the right times, you also have to be careful, make sure you're being competitive in the non-peak times, to make sure that you're not leaving occupancy on the table. So it's a balance of those two.
When you talk with park owners, I guess that aren't doing like a dynamic or really good revenue management program, what are some of the concerns you hear from them, or things you hear from them as far as why they're nervous to do something like that, why they don't want to take the rates off their website, stuff like that?
So I think, like with any industry, it's antiquated. You've been doing the same thing for 30 or 40 years. I mean, there are still
Yeah.
park managers that have AOL email addresses, right? They have the same pictures that they have on their website when they created it for 20 years ago, right? They're 480 pixelated, and so I think some of it is some of it is they've been doing well for so long they haven't had to, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the business just came because there were camping industry wasn't as exposed as it is now, and now there's far more exposure positively on the industry. Number two is there's that Simon Sinek chart, if you know who he is, and he's got that law of diffusion of innovation. Of like there's the early adopters, and then there's the middle group, and then there's the people at
Yep.
the end who that the only reason they don't have a handset phone is because they don't make them anymore, right? And
Yep.
so there's a lot of people in the industry that are on that back curve of that law of diffusion of innovation, and just fighting, right? Maybe they just got their first smartphone. They used to have a flip phone, and so I think it's the same thing with revenue management. Is it's scary, it's new technology, and when I do these classes or these sessions or when I speak, I can see people's eyes glazing over as I'm vomiting information at them, in terms and technology and language and numbers, and not a lot of people are comfortable even just with Excel, and so I think it's scary. I think it's new, but it's no different than when somebody did their first Facebook meta ad, right? Eventually you got to adopt the new technology or the new system that helps you evolve your property, and then once you do it, it's like, how could I have never done this before? And so
Yeah.
revenue management will be the same thing. People first got grid optimization. There was a lot of struggle over, like, I want control over my own sites. That nobody could do it better than me. The puzzle piece, where you fit the right sites. And the grid optimization saves time and it makes money. And yes, there's still that little bit of 5 to 10% where the park owner is going to manage their own grid optimization. But before there was that tool, everybody was doing it all manually. And were they doing it as effectively as they could without the technology? The answer is no. Now, the ones who still aren't using it say, I can do it better. And maybe, but how many hours are you spending when you could be, analyzing the business or with your customer or driving your culture? So it's a great question and something that I get a lot. And it's showing them the data and then
Yeah.
showing them what they can do, showing them the reports. Have they looked? And so when I go through these sessions or these classes, I'll always get to one report that might resonate with one person, and a different report will resonate with another person. Like, huh? And that's all you're looking for, is that curiosity bubble to go off in the head for somebody to go, huh? And make
Yeah.
them think and ask the question, and then go find the report that works for them to say, I wonder if I could, or I hadn't thought about that, or maybe I should look at it a different way. And
Yeah.
that's all we're trying to do, right? That's what revenue management is looking in the future and using past to determine what you can do to improve your future. So it's I've already nerded out. See, I'm already getting excited. You got
Yep.
me
And,
all.
I think this industry is so interesting too. As you know, it's very relational, and I think when I talk to park owners, there's definitely a segment of park owners out there that are just nervous about confrontations. And with campers that have been coming for a while, what's interesting is a lot of times they make these switches, and I've spoken with a lot of owners that were concerned about that, and then they made the switches, and really nobody even noticed, or like maybe one person noticed, and they got a nasty email, and then they just moved on with their life. But the relational aspect of the industry is kind of interesting to me, and like they definitely, some park owners will definitely make decisions based on whether they're afraid their campers are gonna yell at them.
100%, and
So
that's That's an important thing to consider. But what we talk to our managers about, because our managers are the ones that have to have those conversations with the customers, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we're in hospitality, but we're in the hospitality business. It's still a
Mhm.
business.
Yeah.
Like when we, especially like at our manufactured home neighborhood, if we get complaints because we raise the rate, 3%, and then we'll show the data that, CPI went up 3.5% and the competitors are going up 6. At your house, does your utility bill get increased? Do your cable bills get increased? This is no different, right? We've still got to be in business to make money. And to be profitable. And I remember I was driving through Verde Ranch in the golf cart one time, and somebody waved me down, a guest, and he laid into me about site lock fees. Laid into me. And how could you do this? We've been coming here for years. This is the first time we'd rolled it out. And we've been coming here for years. We want this particular site, and I'm like, I completely understand that, but you're going to pay for that premium. Well, I can't believe your business practice. And I said, sir, I understand. So when was the last time you flied? Where you flew? Were you able to just sit in first class whenever you wanted? Or if you the exit seat or an aisle or the front of the plane or Delta Comfort, all of those things, those premium options come with a price. And so he's like, well, you can't run your business that way. And I said, I understand, but I can run my business that way. I choose to. Whether or not you decide to put your business with us is up to you. Our hopefully our service and our value and our amenities and our location and our experience trump all that other concern you have, but that's our business decision of how we want to run our business. And once you explain that to a customer, if you give the airline analogy of everybody's paying a different price, or everybody's paying a different price for the seat that you want, or you understand and explain CPI, for the most part, people are really understanding. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think the site lock thing is kind of interesting too because, you have your dynamic pricing, the site lock. There's very strong attitudes towards site lock too. I think some of it comes back to like the way some parks are set up or the way parks have been operated in the past. So that's kind of interesting to see how that site lock thing develops too, and to see if more parks begin to implement more of that kind of stuff. So,
I hope they do. We had a conversation with a client a few months ago who's got a park in a very, very high, top 2, 3 demand area in the country, and they're not charging site lock fees on any of them. Well, how could we? We don't want somebody. We have to be able to move the grid around. And I said, you have the opportunity to either turn it off or turn it on. I said, but
yeah,
just try it on one. You can do it by site type. I said, you're leaving money on the table. It's 95% flowable revenue. It's pure profit. And so I tried
yeah,
to explain the math to him. I said, do me a favor, just try it on one site type, right? Try it on like a back end that's not a premium, one of your lower class ones, and see, and they tried it and they're like, I can't believe we haven't been doing this forever. And so again, there's a lot of resistance to the, we
yeah,
can't charge people that, or how am I going to manage that, or you're not going to be able to move somebody now. And I mean, again, it's no different than the hotel business, right? Where people get to pick their room and their room type, and so it's just the evolution and the education of our campgrounds and the managers and the owners of bringing up that level to what the hotel business has been doing for 2 decades.
yeah.
And so,
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So, I guess, I wanted to touch a little bit on social media stuff too. I guess what you guys, how does that operate you obviously have multiple different parks. Do you guys have like a central marketing department that helps with that? Or do the parks do their own individual work on social media? How does that?
yeah. And so we have, let's call it, 3 arms, 3 legs of the stool, right? We
Mhm.
have a main, marketing partner, Insider Perks, Brian, of course, right, who helps
Mhm.
us with our,
Yep.
AI chatbot Rigsby, who we're rolling out AI voice reservations in about a week in partnership with Insider Perks and CampSpot, and we'll be the first, really RV resort in the country, and I don't even think hotels are doing it yet, where an AI Rigsby will answer the phone. You'll be able to make a reservation. You'll never get a busy signal again. You can make a reservation at 1 a.m. And I think it'll change the industry forever. So that's pretty exciting. Sorry, I know that wasn't your question. But
No,
we have
that's,
one arm, which is Insider Perks, who helps us with
yeah.
our Google
Yep.
ads, and, our websites. Then we have our marketing department, and then we have the property, and it's a balance of all three. And so I would say strategic. social marketing and strategy and influencers and promotions and ads. We handle it at the corporate office, and then the properties contribute, with posts and activities and engagement and responses, so that everybody has a role, in driving social media. And I think, next week I'm doing a lunch and learn with AGA on social
Yeah.
media as well, and I did it for the Arizona OHA convention. And something I find interesting that I talk about is, social media means so many different things. I mean, LinkedIn is social media, right? And so
Yeah.
social media basically used to mean Facebook, but now, of course, it's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, a couple others. But when I was looking at some stats, it's almost eight. I think there's 8 billion users on social media in the world. The number one platform is Facebook, right? Number two platform is Instagram. Number three is YouTube. Number four is TikTok. And I think if you go back 3 years ago, most people were only posting on Facebook from a campground standpoint. But as our demographics have changed, my kids don't even have a Facebook account, right? I'm not even sure they have an Instagram account. They have Snapchat accounts, TikTok accounts. Gen Xers, don't have a TikTok account. Baby boomers don't have an Instagram account. And so my point is, social media is now, you have to be integrated into all the platforms because you have all those different demographics staying in your campground at the same time, most likely. And in order to touch them, you have to make sure that you're using each one of those different platforms appropriately and in congruence. Otherwise, you're leaving a segment of that population out from your exposure.
Yeah, it's just, I think, it can get a little overwhelming for park owners. I think, when you talk about multiple platforms and trying to do different things, I know I've heard people talk about how, you just need to simplify, do stuff that seems to work for you at first, and then maybe build from there if you can. There is a lot of moving pieces to all of that. And then when you get into like Snapchat and TikTok, that's a lot of short form video work. It is a lot. So I will say the park owners definitely have a lot to keep an eye on. So,
Yeah, and I think leverage the tools, right? With AI now, you can do a lot of the
mm,
posting with AI and create a lot of the content, which is fantastic. And it saves time. You can also schedule posts out. So, if you're slower in your off season, schedule out the next 30 posts for the rest of the year, right? So that some of your, more scripted posts, that you've done ahead of time.
yeah,
There are tools where you can post on multiple platforms at once. You don't have to post on all 4 or 5 platforms separately. So there's a lot of tools and technology that can streamline and make it more efficient, especially for the someone who doesn't have corporate oversight or big marketing firm. If it is like a one mom and pop park owner, or find the front desk person, who's like 23 years old, who's great at social media. There's ways to overcome it. Especially if a campground owner is maybe older and isn't as savvy or as scared about social media. Um, you know, Different tools and technology to be able to make sure that happens.
yeah. And you mentioned AI. That there's definitely a lot of tools out there for AI, just even on the marketing asset front, as far as creating things that you can share. That's definitely evolving. Hopefully, we don't get to a Terminator type level
I hope
AI.
so too. I mean, my AI virtual background's already. I think I got the AI up here above my head, and so virtual background's not doing me any good today. But hopefully not.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for right now. But Mike, I always enjoy chatting with you. You always have a ton to say, and we'll definitely have to have you back on at some point. You always got a ton of information in that head of yours. So,
No, thank you, Ben, and thank you, Woodall Campground Management. We're very excited and always enthused to participate. We appreciate it. Thank you.
well, thank you, Mike, for coming on, and thank you everyone for watching. And we will be back again next time.